I kind of expected this to come sooner or later. Bears lose 33 to 22 to the San Francisco 49ers. Now, seeing how we performed in the last two games, was not expecting much. Even though it was against two of the best teams in the NFC as of this week, I mean, I was still not really hoping for anything, so I wasn't going to get let down. So Jimmy G comes back to Chicago, his second trip. Last time he was here in 2017, he won thanks to Robbie Gould kicking 5 field goals, which that loss actually really hurt that season a lot. That one was a really tough one to swallow. It began the Niners' 5 or 6 game run at the end of the season, but it still hurt nonetheless because we were still really bad, and it was a revenge game against Gould and Garoppolo's first start. But what can you do? That was when the Bears were really bad. We finished 5-11 that year, although we went 4-0 against the AFC North that year. I will actually never forget that. We won all 4 of our interconference games, but won 1 game in conference. So that was, yeah. Moving on to this game. Coming into this game, the 49ers had not scored a touchdown against the Chicago Bears since 2015, when Torrey Smith scored that game-winning overtime touchdown from Blaine Gabbert. That was the last touchdown the Niners scored against the Bears. It's been over 3 games. We held them to 2 field goals in 2016, 3 in 2018, and then obviously the 5 in 2017. So that was very interesting. After playing them 4 years straight, this was our first time playing them since 2018. I forgot to mention Matt Nagy was not coaching today. And it really showed in the first half. It really did. Because without him on the field, there's no way he can kind of jackknife play calling or anything. So that was all Bill Lazor. And they had a pretty good first half. Chris Tabor was the interim fill-in head coach for this game, as Matt Nagy went down with COVID. Which, as much garbage as Matt Nagy gets, I do wish that he does recover from COVID and he's able to get back to his job. Because, we're paying him to coach the team, and if he can't coach the team, what are we doing with that money? And you know what? The Bears had a pretty good first half. Justin Fields looked pretty dang good. Had that really nice touchdown pass to Jesse James, rolling to his left, fitting it in that tight window, and that was really the only touchdown of the half, as the Bears defense was able to hold the Niners to 3 field goals. And then the second half came around and things got turned upon its head. Now, let me tell you, we were going into half up 13-9, and I was like, okay, we're up at halftime. We've scored on every possession in a single half for the first time in 8 years, by the way. So that was also something that we accomplished in this game. That's a positive takeaway. And we'd expect things to keep going. It did. We scored a field goal on our next drive. But then things got bad. On a 3rd and long, deep in their own territory, Garoppolo just checks it down to Deebo Samuel, who then proceeds to take that said screen pass not only for a first down, but for 83 yards. Almost a touchdown. DeAndre Houston Carson saves an 84-yard touchdown. And the Bears had a nice goal line stand for a bit, but Jimmy Garoppolo is able to punch it in, run it in for 1 yard out. The Niners end that streak of, I think it was 14 or 15 quarters straight without a touchdown against the Bears. And Joey Sly missed the extra point, so the Bears will hang on to the 1-point lead. It wouldn't be for much longer as the Bears proceeded to punt on the next drive, and the Niners ended up scoring another touchdown, converting a 2-point conversion, and the Bears were now down as we're now entering the 4th quarter. The Niners took their first lead of the game. They'd been answering the call. They'd been answering every drive the Bears had with points, and now the Bears offense kind of stalled out. That was all they could do. Hey, 16 points on four straight drives. That's the best we can do. which is really a shame. It really is. But you know what? Such is life. But then again, this Bears offense has been so bad for so long. We're starting to get impatient with it. It's a very long and arduous discussion about how this offense performed and whether we should be pleased with 22 points on the board. Although after the Niners did score to make it 23-16, the Bears drove down and a completion to Allen Robinson falls short. It'll be 4th and 1. Justin Fields on said 4th and 1 takes the snap and immediately is flushed. The offensive line pressure gives away right as the snap is given to Fields as per usual. This is a natural and a reoccurring trend with the Bears offensive line. Check the Browns game if you want any information about how the Bears offensive line has been this season and how I feel about them. On this play, Justin Fields shows off his athleticism and the raw talent he has and the potential he has. Because unlike in the Browns game where every time he was sacked, not only was the pressure giving way the second the ball was snapped and, the pocket collapsed where he had nowhere to go, he actually had somewhere to go here. Avoids a couple tackles. And then he gets to the edge, he's getting the first down, and then all of a sudden, he's got it inside the 10, and he goes all the way for a touchdown! Justin Fields with a miraculous run, probably the best play of his career. You know what? No, the best play of his career so far, and it's an extra point away from being tied. We got the most consistent kicker in the NFL right now. Cairo Santos hasn't missed a kick since Week 3 against the Atlanta Falcons last year. And, when you hear something like that and you're in a situation like this where it's an extra point ties the game after you let up the lead for the first time, of course Santos misses. It doesn't ruin his field goal streak. That 30-plus, almost 40 field goal streak is still going. But he does miss the extra point, and, well, we didn't tie the game. Fields and Herbert was our sense of offense in this game. Although Herbert went down for a little bit, Ryan Nall came in. Justin Fields mixing up the names and putting up on the Chargers quarterback. Wow. Anyways, as I was saying, Justin Fields really, really covered some of the work that Herbert had to do and missed out on after he looked like he got the wind knocked out of him after recovering a fumble and kind of coming down awkwardly on it. And so Fields had his first 100-yard rushing game of his career, accented by the long rush. But also, on a third down, Justin Fields had to scramble again because the offensive line can't cover. And he's able to make a nasty spin move on Fred Warner and pick up the first down. Justin Fields looked very impressive today, at least in the running game. In the passing game, it was more of the same, short passes, not really giving him a chance to air it out deep, except on the final drive where he threw a pick to Josh Norman. This was a pretty good game from an offensive standpoint for the Bears' standards. We scored 3 in the last game, 14 against Green Bay, only 20 against the Raiders. That's the most points we scored since we beat Detroit 24-14. And that's the second highest point total we have put up this season. That really should tell you that this is an alarming problem for the Bears. No 30-point games this season, no 25-point games this season. Our highest scoring game is a 24-point performance. We've only scored 3 touchdowns once this season. In that game against Detroit, we scored twice today, and we still cannot hold the other team to less points. It's really frustrating for this offense to, have that 20-point performance, which for the Bears offense these past couple of years has really been hard to come by. And when the defense can't show up, especially after Deebo Samuel hit that 83-yard screen pass catch and run, the momentum had shifted at that point in the game, and it was over at that point when The Niners scored that touchdown, and they scored again. And then Garoppolo had the second rushing touchdown from 5 yards out. When he scored that touchdown, I knew that they had to score right there. They were down by 8. They needed to score on a 2-point conversion, which that's a lot asking. You're asking a lot for the Bears offense for a touchdown and 2-point conversion in like 6 minutes. You're asking a lot from them. Naturally, they don't get it. They punt it away, and the Bears defense lets Elijah Mitchell run all over them. Joey Sly kicks the short field goal, and the game is over at that point at 33-22. The second half defense was atrocious, letting up 24 points in the half, 3 touchdowns, all of them rushing, by the way, and just letting the running game just pound them in. I mean, Deebo Samuel it was Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Elijah Mitchell just running all over the Bears secondary and the Bears front line, because once Elijah Mitchell was able to get through that first wave of the Bears defense, he was breaking off huge runs. The Niners just were not able to be stopped in the second half because the Bears defense just could not stop a single thing in the second half. And frankly, that's what let the game get away from us. This game is not one of those games in the past couple of years where the defense has carried us, kept us in the game for so long, and then gives way in the late stages of the third quarter and fourth quarter because they're so tired from being out there all the time. Because that's not what happened. The Bears offense was actually getting some plays, and they were actually having some drives. It wasn't just 3 and outs the entire game. They were able to score some points. For the Bears offense, 20 points, especially this season, is a success. I think you know where I'm going here. The Bears offense didn't perform really that bad. 22 points is the second best effort this season by the offense, but it's the defense in the second half letting up 24 points that really lost us this game here. Another really long game for the Bears. It's just depressing to see that even when the offense can show up every now and then, the defense doesn't show up, and they've let up 30-plus points in the last 2 games. And that's just unfortunate. They had a good game against Rodgers. Well, 24 points, holding Rodgers to 24 points is a pretty good game considering how explosive that Packers offense is. But again, it's not enough. That's the thing with the defense. They're getting some stops, but they're letting up more points now all of a sudden because the secondary has dropped off a ton over the past couple of years, and it's really, really showing. You let up 71 points in 2 weeks, 38 and 33. That is just not acceptable. And if you add the 24 from Green Bay, you almost have let up 100 points in the last 3 games. That's not acceptable as a defense, especially a Bears defense, because this team has a long history of great defenses. We're not known for really explosive offensive play, so we usually rely on the running game and the defense, which is much the same this year. Khalil Herbert has been yet another gem we've drafted in the late rounds, and just another running back that we were just able to find, and he's able to perform. He ran for 100 yards against Tampa, had a pretty decent game here. But again, we cannot hit on quarterbacks and wide receivers. We're the only team in the league that has more rushing yards per game than passing yards per game. And in today's NFL, that is impossible because nearly every single team is averaging over 200 pass yards per game. I don't think a single team is averaging over 200 run yards per game. I think that goes to show how pretty one-dimensional our offense is. We've got a good running game, and we're usually consistently able to do well on the ground. But if you're able to take out the air game, I mean, there's nothing we can do except run the ball. And even when we try to pass, it's all these short passes. It's been like this all season. One of these days, we'll see Fields launch a deep pass that actually gets connected, and we'll actually have Fields take more than 1 or 2 deep shots per game. I think that's something that in Matt Nagy's offense was very, very clear, very conservative, very run-heavy after he figured out that the pass game wasn't working and that the run game was all that time ago. He's stuck to it, and teams have figured it out pretty much. So when he gave over play calling duties to Bill Lazor, which was definitely an improvement, it still really hasn't done much. We had that good game against Detroit, but outside of that, there really hasn't been much from the passing game, and it's continuing to struggle. Fields only has 3 touchdown passes in, 5 starts now? One against the Raiders, one against the Packers, and one against the 49ers here. He rushed for 1 today. He's rushed for 1 against the Rams. I mean, other than that, it's all been rushing scores. And that's even if we score a touchdown in the game, because we've been held off the score sheet for a touchdown in 2 games this season, and that's just unacceptable. While I've been ripping on the offense here for the last little bit, the defense needs to do better at holding teams to less points. Again, you win games by scoring more points than the other team, and if your defense is letting up 30 points a game, you're not going to win many games, because especially with our offense isn't putting up 30 points a game. If you have an explosive offense like the Chiefs from last year, their offense has been mostly figured out now. We'll see how the season progresses, but man, that game against Tennessee was rough. But especially looking back to last year, the last couple of years for the Chiefs, they've been able to score their way out of a lot of problems. And because they haven't been able to score their way out of a lot of problems, it's really exposing their defense, and it's showing how you can beat the Chiefs. It really is. The Chiefs have been figured out at this point. That's how the NFL works. And who knows whether they can recover from it or if they kind of just become an average team this season. We're at week 8. There's still 10 weeks to play. None of us, no one is out of the playoffs right now. Although you can definitely tell that there are going to be teams that are going to miss the playoffs. But no one is technically out yet. So the Bears still have a shot here. They really need to fight. They've had another 3-5 start. This is looking a lot like 2019. It's an uphill battle from here on out. We've got Pittsburgh next week on Monday night, who just upset the Cleveland Browns on the road. And that is a very good defense led by TJ Watt that we're going to be going up against next week. So the Bears offense needs to do a lot of work, especially in the passing game, because if they can't get the running game going with how good their defensive line has been, they're not going to win that game. And that also rides on the defense being able to stop Ben Roethlisberger, although Ben Roethlisberger isn't as explosive as a quarterback as he once was. It's going to be a very interesting game. It's going to be very interesting to see how this works out, because after this next game against the Steelers, we get our bye week, and then the Baltimore Ravens. So the Bears wrapping up their interconference schedule these next 3 weeks. That's going to do it for me. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time as we hope for a win against the Steelers. Take care.